Hello, good evening, good night. All right. Nice seeing you again for episode 84 of Science for the Living Room, or Wissenschaft fürs Wohnzimmer, as we call it here in Germany. Episode 84 is just like every episode hosted by the RVs for Future. That is a grassroots movement within the Alfred Wegener Institute for Polar and Marine Research. And what we do is science communications. I'm really happy that you're here tonight with us. My name is Bjorn Suko. I work at RV for the bioeconomy group, do a lot of applied research, but I'm not here alone. Not only is Autun there, I'm really happy that he's on the show, but also two of my colleagues who will present themselves, and then Autun will do all the job presenting himself, and then let's go.
Yeah, I am Rebecca. I'm a physical oceanographer at AVI, and so I effectively look at the movement of the oceans, and particularly how they are impacting the glaciers in northeast Greenland and melting those there. And so we use models and observations to try and determine how all of the physics effectively works. And so welcome today. And it's lovely to have you all. And please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. So every week you can get more of this very interesting, engaging, both in English and in German scientific content. And we're also here with colleague Matthias.
Yeah, good evening. I'm also really much looking forward to this talk by my colleague Autun. Actually, we're in the same group at RV. But I'm more working in the upper water column, not in the deep sea as he does. So we kind of share the same ocean, but looking at different compartments there. But since everything is connected, I'm really looking forward to this exciting talk about the fish nests, and don't want to say much more. Just enjoy the evening and hand over to Autun.
Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen. I hope you can see it now. And there we go. So I would like to talk to you about our recent finding of these fish nests that we found in Antarctica February last year. So we were most surprised to find that fish actually build these nests, and we found quite some nests, as I'll show you in a minute. So I'm going to introduce the cruise and how we found these beautiful fish. So individual fish are about 75 centimeters in size, yet they form these huge arrays in this location for kilometers. So the whole seafloor was completely covered by these nesting fish, which is pretty amazing. I've never seen anything like it before. And just a quick map here to show you where we were before I introduce myself. We were in the Weddell Sea, which is this bit of Antarctica at the north of this, or the top of this map here, which is between the Antarctic Peninsula and the Neumayer station here, the German station over on the right there. Okay, so who am I? Well, I am a marine ecologist for the Alfred Wegener Institute. As Matthias said, I'm working in the deep seas group, and my job is to run the OFOBS, the Ocean Floor Observation and Bathymetry System. This is a towed camera, basically, that we lower below the ship and photograph the seafloor. And we can do that up to depths of 6 kilometers. These particular fish nests were just at 500 kilometers, but still, you can't dive that deep. Okay, and I'm mostly interested in explaining patterns of deep sea animal distribution. And in this case, these fish nests seem to be related to both Rebecca and Matthias's work, which is pretty interesting. And before I became a scientist, I was actually an actor, and here I am in the popular movie Shaun of the Dead. Okay, so we found these fish nests during the Continental Shelf Multidisciplinary Flux Study cruise. Now, this is with the POLARSTERN, and as I said, to the Weddell Sea, and the fish nests where this arrow is indicating here, so quite near to the mainland. And this cruise was taking place with the POLARSTERN, the world's best research icebreaker. And what this ship can do is work in areas which are completely ice covered by sea ice, such as the Weddell Sea. And we had quite a lot of ice this year. It was also the year and the cruise where we had the chance to go around this massive iceberg, the A74 iceberg that broke off, and POLARSTERN drove around it, and we reported on that in April. Maybe you saw that. It was the same expedition. Yeah, there's a lot of large lumps of ice floating around during this time, but these fish nests are under ice that's about 1 meter thick on average, and this is there pretty much the whole year round. Now, this is my beautiful toy, the Ocean Floor Observation and Bathymetry System. The front has got various cameras and the computer for talking to the ship. It talks to the ship through a cable that's running up above the device. And we have a very high resolution still camera, 26 megapixels, and we have an HD video camera there. We also have a bathymetry system on the back. So while we're towing this, we can also make high resolution maps of the seafloor. And at the front, we have an acoustic camera or sonar, which allows us to see if there's anything that's going to smash us if we crash into it. What we can do as we're working is we can tell the winch operator, go higher, and we can avoid damaging this 3.5 million euro device. And here it is about to be deployed by one of our technicians. So what we do is we lower the camera off the back of the ship, and then we sit in front of laptops like virtually everyone in every job across the world these days. And we can see live what we're seeing on the seafloor. And we have various computers doing various works here. I'm looking at the camera. My job is usually to run the camera on this device. And here is the rest of the team that was involved in the find. Laura Hehiman in the middle was looking after the mapping. So she was running the bathymetry system. Laura on the right, Lily on the right is the alternative camera lady, and Elena supports Laura. So all of us were running this device during all of our dives. So now I'll introduce the discovery of these beautiful fish nests. This is the Weddell Sea at the top of this particular map. And here we have, where the mouse is, the Fishner Trough. This is an area of a sort of valley feature on the seafloor of Antarctica below the ice, where water actually comes uphill from the deeper area here and past all of these dots, all these numbered dots, where Rebecca's colleagues keep oceanographic instruments to measure how the flow is going in Antarctica. That was a real aim of this cruise. There was 50 scientists on board, and many of them were oceanographers looking at how the circulation may be changing in this area of Antarctica with global warming. And my small group was sort of an extra. And what happens is these oceanographic moorings have got batteries and data inside them that needs to be rotated every 3 years. So Polarstern will come here, recharge the batteries, collect all of the data, and put new batteries and data and devices underwater. But what happens at night time is you have the ship not doing so much. You need light to do this sort of work. These are on these very long cables, and they tend to do that in the day. So at night time, you have the chance to do other science, secondary science, such as mine. And so what we did is we would put this camera sled overboard at night, quite near where they were changing the moorings in the day, and see what we would find. And what we found the one night was the fish nests. Like I said, it was a night shift. And I wasn't actually there when we found these particular fish nests for the first time. I was on the bridge doing whale watching duty. When you're below 60 degrees south and you're using an instrument which makes acoustics, like sound waves, you have to have 2 people on the bridge looking for whales. If you see whales, you would turn off the instruments. Now, I was doing that, and my colleagues were looking at the camera feeds. So it was actually them that found the fish nest rather than me. Okay, oops, next one. Okay, it says play video. So now I'm going to quickly play you a video of the discovery. So this video I'm going to show you is actually when we found the fish nest. This is the very first video of the fish nests. Right, so what you can see here is us lowering our camera through the water. And the red lines are lasers. Now, these lasers are 50 centimeters apart, so you can see how big things are on the seafloor by the points of the lasers. You can just see the dots coming in now. And you can see the fish nests already. So we're about 12 meters up in the water column now, coming closer and closer. And you can see there's quite some particles in the water. It's because the ice above is 1 meter thick, but that's not enough to stop photosynthesis. So you are getting photosynthesis occurring underneath the ice in this area. And now we're going lower and lower. And remember, those dots are 50 centimeters apart. So you can see that each fish is about 55, 60 centimeters in size. And you can see that all of these nests that we found are separated. There's no occasion, we counted 16,000 nests, and there is not a single occasion where 2 nests were overlaying each other. These fish, they like to be social and quite near each other, but not too close to each other. What we can see on the screen is the various other animals between the fish nests. Right here, we've got an area where there's not so many fish. Here we can see a dead fish. I'm just going to quickly pause it. You can see here there's a fish that's dead. So what it seems to be is that these fish are nesting and then they're guarding the eggs, but they're not eating while they're guarding the eggs. And some of them are actually dying because they become malnourished and they die. And then you can see things like this starfish in the center of the lasers crawling in to eat the dead fish. We saw octopuses gathering these fish up and eating them, and various other fish eating them. So they're a real bonanza for some creatures. That's a sea urchin we can see there crawling along the surface. Various filter feeding animals like that big anemone there. So there is some stuff in the water that's supporting life. So even though we're below the ice, we expected to see life like these anemones and occasional fish. We did not expect to see all of these fish nests. We knew that there was occasional fish nests in the Weddell Sea. Many of these ice fish make nests, but only in the gatherings of tens in the past, never in the gatherings like this in the tens of thousands. And you can see the blue eggs quite clearly in this video. So every 15 seconds, there's a sudden flash, and that is when our still camera is taking a picture. It takes us a little while to send enough power down the cable to charge the flash batteries. So we can only take a photograph every 15 to 20 seconds. We can take these HD cameras under normal light, LED lights, but to catch a good high resolution photograph, we can only take them every 15 seconds or so. Now, these fish are moving quite a bit now. That's because we're flying at a height of 1.5 meters, and we think there's a wave of water pushed in front of the device that the fish don't like very much. After this first dive, we decided to fly a little bit higher and fly faster so we could try and map the extent of this fish nest. And when we did that, we realized that the fish do not get disturbed by the OFOS. So it's really just because we're quite near to the seafloor, the fish seem to be more active than they would be normally. So for this particular first dive, I'm only showing you 4 minutes. We had 4 hours of unbroken fish nests, just nest after nest after nest. I mean, when I went down after 20 minutes of whale watching to see the screen, I thought, wow, isn't it lucky we found one of these fish nest colonies? And I thought, well, how big is this colony? And it just kept coming and coming and coming for the whole night, the whole time we had the camera available to us. So we had the opportunity on 4 other nights to fly and try and map the area. And as I say in the paper, we worked it out to be at least 240 kilometers in size. Okay, I shall stop that video now and return to the other one, to the PowerPoint. Oops. Share screen, PowerPoint. Okay. So yeah, as you can see here, it's almost like a computer game or something. These nests are so perfect and so similar to each other, and just across such a huge area, it really was the most unique of ecosystems to see such regular spacing in nature. And here is a box showing 1 meter. So it's really, they're about 75 centimeters in diameter, these fish nests. Very reminiscent of penguin colonies. So some of the people on the ship, of course, are Antarctic researchers, and they pointed out the similarities between these fish nests, the spacing, the size, the shape, and what penguins do. So that's a pretty surprising similarity between an animal that actually lives near the fish nests and the fish nests themselves. So here's Laura, the expert with the maps. And what she would do is look at all of our sonar data. And here we see an image from the forward sonar of our device. And you can see that this is 40 meters in front of the device, the end circle here. And you can see all these small black depressions. Those are all individual fish nests that are forward of the device that we can see with the sonar. And even more impressively, this is a map made by our side scan sonar as we moved. We moved from the top left of this map to the bottom right of this map. And we are, as we move, we're taking sound waves on both sides of the device. And we're recording all of those many fish nests. You can see them all there. And you can even see the individual fishes in the centers of some of these nests. So we took 2,145 photographs over 5 nights, counted by hand 16,1 160 nests. Well, my student did, and of which we determined that 12,000 nests were in use, which worked out as 0.26 nests per square meter. So basically one nest in every 4 meters. And this was across an area of 240 square kilometers of seafloor. And what was very interesting was that this nesting colony, like the penguin colony, started immediately from no nests, no nests, no nests to 0.26 nests. For the entire distance of the colony, it was very uniform distribution. We found that each nest has 1,700 eggs in, plus or minus 400 or so. And we worked out that across the area, there must be 60 million fish nests active, or 60,000 tons of fish. I'm going to slowly bring you closer to these nests now, and I'll quickly go through this little diagram here. So this is an illustration of a nest that's got a living fish and dead fish. Now, what you can see is that the one on the right, there's a lot of dead bodies in there. So we didn't see any occasions when the fish were hanging out in more than 2 in a nest. So to have loads of dead fish in there, we think that they are dying and rolling in there and getting trapped in there. You can see they're all in different stages of breaking down. We didn't see a single nest with any eggs in, had any dead fish in. So we think that they die and then they quickly rot down in these areas. And the fish are almost neutrally buoyant, so they can be moved with very light currents. And I think they roll along the seafloor, and then they fall into the other nests, and then they get eaten by the things you can see there, starfish and various other little small fish. Yeah, also what you can see there is in M is a giant sea spider. Now that sea spider is maybe 25 or 30 centimeters across in the bottom left corner of the picture. And these seem to be occasionally darting in and grabbing eggs from the nests. So we see sometimes that these sea spiders are sitting next to a couple of egg husks. And we know that sea spiders are capable of sucking out something nice and juicy. So they could be coming in and trying to suck the eggs when they get the chance. So these fish really have got their job cut out for them, protecting the eggs from everybody. Now, as we zoom in closer, we can see a few features of the nest. So this black material, the fine black circle that you can see, this is broken up bits of rock which has been carried out to the area by the glaciers off the Antarctic continent, and it's falling always as a rain and getting caught up in the sediments. And what the fish does is it spins in a circle and wafts all of the soft sediment out the way, and these dark black bits fall to the bottom, and even heavier pebbles that you can see underneath the eggs there. There's lots of pebbles in the middle. These are also mixed into the sediments and also carried by the ice, and they're falling into the very center of the nests. Now, this allows the fish to lay the eggs on the stones, and the stones provide both a protection from predators coming up from the mud, but also helps to aerate the eggs to keep oxygen flowing on the eggs so they don't rot on the seafloor. So it's a double-edged benefit by having this material. All of the eggs seem the same size and basically in the same condition. So we think that these fish are all nesting at the same time, and probably all these eggs would hatch at a very similar time. So why are these nests where they are? So here's the position where the nests are, at the edge of the Fishner sill. We found that these nests are exactly in an area where warm water is upwelling on the edge of this trough. You see where this red line is in the top picture here? The top one is temperature, and basically the darker colors are the colder temperature. So where the fish nests are is 2 degrees warmer than the surrounding waters. Now, 2 degrees would mean that the eggs hatch quicker, but I think it's more likely it's a navigational aid. There's so many fish in this area, I believe that they are using this tongue of warm water to find each other at the reproductive stage. That's possibly a good reason. Oxygen is slightly depleted. The second graph, where the fish nests are, is this warmer water coming in. It's still 80% oxygenated, so we don't think there's a limiting. Oxygen is an important factor here. You might think that particles are important for the filter feeders and stuff like that, and for the fish to feed on, but like I said, we hypothesize that the fish are not eating. And if you see in the bottom graph, the highest amount of particles are actually not where the fish nests are, but in the bottom of the Fishner trough. So the red area where the fish nests are is not where the particles are. Also an interesting possibility that it's not what's at the bottom that's important, but what Matthias's area is important, the surface waters, the upper waters. One of our colleagues, Clara Flintrop, she was doing drift traps. Now, these are devices which catch zooplankton, small animals, in the upper water column. And you can see there's in the map at the top there was various deployments of these devices. And we found that DF2, Drift Trap 2, collected far more of these small animals than the other traps. Now, we think that might be important for this particular fish because American colleagues working at another Antarctic station have determined that these fish nests, these fish, when they hatch, the juveniles live just under the ice and eat this sort of small animal. So having this high food abundance above the fish nests might be the important factor too. And it was much higher in this area than anywhere else we found on the cruise. So there really is a boon of food availability for the juveniles when they hatch. Of course, there's many unknowns. We're not sure whether the temperature is important for the speed of egg hatching or if it's a navigational aid. We don't know the role of nutrients in the bottom waters or in the upper waters. We don't know if the amount of ice is important above. But what we do know is that the nests move. Each year or each period, the nests decide that nesting is going on in a different area. We found across the map to the west, the red area here is where the active fish nests are. We found in all these green areas, dead nests, like this one. This is a nest, the circle in the center here, very well infilled with bits of detritus, and also slow-growing sponges are living in there. So it's been abandoned for a long time, but the feature is still clear on the seafloor. So in the past, other areas have been attractive for these fish nests, and they have moved here to where they were currently were when we found them. And here's another example. You can see rings of the fish nests, not particularly clear in a photograph, but in the acoustics, they looked exactly like they did everywhere else. And we found not one single fish in any of these areas which are abandoned. So these fish seem to really, really abandon an area when they get sick of living there. Now, are the fish nests important? Well, important to some other animals. On the ship, we have various researchers, and some of them were seal researchers. And what these seal researchers have been doing over the last decade with colleagues from America and the UK and other countries, South Africa, have been sticking tracking devices on seals once a year. So when the seal changes its coat each year, and when it's got its new coat, they stick this on, and then it stays for 1 year, and the seal basically works as a scientist for no pay. And every time the seal dives, this tracking device records the details in the water. So it gives you temperature details and things like that. And also it tells how long the seal spent at each depth. And now we know that the seals are liking to dive in the area where the fish nests are in preference to everywhere else. We knew that they were diving in this area, but we didn't know it was because there was fish there. And it seems to be that these seals are probably diving there to eat these fish. And this is the SEAL team going out to do that. So they tagged 10 seals on our cruise, but they can also count the seals by satellite. And there was 1,500 seals in the area when we were doing our particular study. So that they were probably diving down there and eating these fish. Now, with 60 million fish in that area and those 1,500 seals, you've got a fair chance, if you're a fish, of surviving. Say the seal can smell you or sense you. It can just sense some fish. It's got a good chance to survive if you manage to nest near your friends. So maybe that's why they're nesting like that. What's next? Well, like I said, we've got many questions about why the fish there we don't know the answers to from our one little visit. So we've decided to leave a camera there and see if we can see when the fish hatch, if the same fish come back the following year to the nests, if the nests are totally abandoned, whether one fish hatches or many fish hatch from a particular nest. So we've left several cameras there, also a flow meter to measure oceanographic currents and a temperature sensor. And this camera system is taking 4 photographs a day, every day for the next 2 years. You can see the orange battery there. It's really big. And hopefully the battery lasts to allow us to do that. So hopefully in a couple of years, when they come back to rotate those sensors, we can get a better idea of what's going on with this colony. And all of the information that we found is feeding into the proposals for marine protected area for the Weddell Sea. It's 60 degrees. When you get into the Antarctic area, you're not allowed to just start fishing or anything like that. And if all these countries agree to it, which is never going to happen. But to get even more protections, you can't interfere at all with this area. you can become a marine, you can be designated a marine protected area, and that's being planned at the moment for Area A, which is now going to get more support because of these fish nest finds. Yeah, and that, I believe, is it. So thank you for your attention. It's in the it's available now online. This paper, it's free to download by anybody. And the cover of Current Biology in a few weeks will be this fish nest too. So that's the cover mock-up that they sent. So yeah, so thanks for your attention. And if you have any questions, please ask them.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant, interesting, really, really impressive. Yeah, and I think many questions probably have arisen, but before we go into that, I'll shortly let you know what's coming up next week. So next week we're looking into what we can actually learn from marine biology for climate protection and innovation. So a colleague of ours who's doing like amazing pictures, 3D models from the tiniest of organisms in the sea, will explain us how he does, what he does, and what's actually being used for, and that's quite impressive. So I hope to see some of you there. It'll be in German again, so that would be probably for the German-speaking crowd only. But now, let's see, Rebecca, is there anything on the horizon in terms of questions?
Yes, brilliant, Autun. That was really interesting. I know we all thought so, and it seems that the YouTube watchers also thought so. Lots of questions, lots of compliments on the photos. So superb work. So the first question that came in is from Tudor, and actually I think you've already answered it. He asked exactly what the fish feed on, and so you've already said that you don't think that they feed down there. But what you could maybe feed into a question I have perhaps is, where do these fish actually originate from?
That's an excellent question. So we know that they are pan-Antarctic species. So the American station right on the other side of Antarctica also records this species in the waters, but we haven't found any other nests like this anywhere else, although there is some extended ice in that area. So it's the most likely possibility for another ecosystem like this should one exist. I believe, though, that they're coming from at least from maybe a 30-degree angle from this area, because there's so many there. This ecosystem couldn't possibly support that many feeders throughout the year. So I think they're just coming in from all around. So who knows how far they're traveling. So I should have said maybe the day we discovered this fish nest, we contacted a lot of experts on shore, mostly in New Zealand, South Georgia, places like that. They said it was unique, and they also said that potentially these fish have traveled in from quite some distance. So the real fish biologists are going to investigate this further now.
Yeah, that is truly amazing. I mean, just to see these images, I mean, nature is like always keep surprising us. It's just like an amazing finding. So thanks a lot for showing us these brilliant images. So I would have a million questions myself as well. For example, like if they actually mate in the same place or if they come there after mating.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess they probably mate there, but again, hopefully this camera battery works to next year if we can see this. Yeah. But I will rather ask the questions from our viewers now. Actually, two from our good friend and longtime viewer, Konstantin. Well, the first is kind of, I think, related to the fact that some of his relatives has been base commander. If you have met Klaus Gruber at the Neumayer 3 station, because I think that's... Well, Neumayer was closed to us because of COVID. We could see it in the distance, and we collected people from Neumayer, but we were not allowed to go there. So that's I think twice I've been there now, and neither time I've been allowed to visit there. So, yeah. Oh, sorry. But the second question from him is, what kind of cable are you actually using on your camera system? Is it glass fiber or something? Yes, it's a glass fiber coax cable, 16 millimeters. So we have like the power, which is 800 volts that we send down the cable. And then we can also do the data transfer via the fiber cable. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we add one more question from Konstantin to the technical side of things. He asked if you use a LIDAR laser. LIDAR laser. LIDAR, yeah. So I'm not from the. No, well, it's these. No, these are purely. They are like just some purely industrial lasers. They're not very expensive. We did an article about the lasers in Advanced Photomics magazine that you can download. Me and one of the engineers, but they're just industrial lasers for sizing. They're nothing special. So, yeah.
All right, I probably continue with, because I've skipped one question, but I also have a question. So maybe before, so also for the people to understand, because I'm not sure how many people have actually seen or heard about this, but here there was kind of hype. It's not every day that the German news cover it, that you get called up by some of the magazines. But could you just like put this in perspective from a scientific point of view? How sensational is this finding, and who was interested in talking to you all of a sudden?
Yeah, well, I thought after talking to these experts from South Georgia, we obviously had found something that was really, truly spectacular. So when I wrote the paper by April last year, I expected it to be accepted by Nature or Science immediately, but they both rejected it. They said they thought the scope was not of great interest across the general public, which I was amazed by, and I was glad that Current Biology picked it up. And as soon as Current Biology accepted the paper, they do a sort of mail out to other newspapers. They write those quite good, and I got responses a month before the paper was coming out, interviews from New York Times and the internet, Gizmodo, and many diverse people have an interest in this. And I did many interviews in the month leading up to it, so I knew it was going to be big then. And when it came out, then it was just basically everybody was citing it. So I think I did 35 interviews before publication with big newspapers, and then afterwards they were basically feeding off each other's articles, I think, and I got less and less, except from specialist people that are interested. But I've never known anything quite so exciting in my career. I found the deepest benthic octopus in the past, the Casper octopus, that was also laying eggs in the very deep sea. This was quite exciting to a lot of people, but this is much more. I think it's pretty rare to have captured so much interest in everybody. I think it's because it's about reproduction, and the people like that, and it's very remote, and it's very beautiful, and everyone can see the strange patterning of this. I think that's very attractive to people who see patterns and everything. So I think that's really why it took the interest. I should have mentioned, actually, 90% of these fish are the fathers. Most of them are male. So the males have been left in charge, and they may starve to death raising the children, and the women are there to have another generation next year, and the males are disposable. So I should have mentioned that. I think some of the articles were quite interested in this point.
Is that biology just works like everything. So as soon as it's about reproduction, numbers go up. Rebecca, just go with the next question, the one I left out. I'm sorry, guys. It also got us excited here.
No, it's great to also to hear about the context of this discovery. Like you say, it's not everyone that knows so much about fish nests, and so it's good to know just how remarkable this is. And anyway, those female fish sound like they've got the right idea. So we have, first of all, a question about sort of life on the ship. And this one is, I mean, I have my own answer to this, but I'll be curious to yours. And so Tess has asked, so when you're on these ships, do you often go swimming in the freezing sea? So do you ever jump off the bow of the Polarstern?
It depends on which ship you're on. The German ships, the only people allowed to dive in the water are the ones that are unhooking a submarine. And since the German submarine retired in April last year, the Jago, I don't think anyone's going to be swimming off Polarstern. So alas, you can't jump off the ship. The only way you're going to get wet is if you're messing around on the ice doing some algae work or something like that, and you fall between the ices. That's the only way you're going to get wet.
Yeah, I was on a Danish, actually maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but I was on a Danish Navy vessel last year, and we were in a fjord up in Greenland, and of course all the young Navy cadets decided this was a great place for swimming. You know, there's ice on the water, everyone strips up and jumps in, and so I can imagine on an official German research vessel that's not allowed, but the Danes are a bit mad like that. Yeah. It was freezing. But on a more scientific perspective, we have also been asked if this is a commercially used species that you have discovered.
That's a really interesting question as well. So there's 29 species of ice fish, I believe, and virtually most of them are nesting individual nests. And in the 1960s, there was an ice fish which was commercially fished near South Georgia. So this is a long way north. It's still cold, but there's no ice or anything like that. So there was a commercial fishery taking this fish, I think, for meal and things like that, not for a delicacy. And that was a fishery that put pressure on that particular species. But this location where we're talking about now is permanently ice covered. It's a long way into the ice. So if you're going to go there with a fishing vessel, you're doing Russian roulette with 6 bullets in your 6-bullet chamber. Really, we could hardly drive in a straight line with Polarstern, and that's a 110-meter icebreaker. So I think that this one, even if it was quite an attractive fish, would be quite safe from fisheries. I didn't eat any. I'm a vegetarian, so, and I don't know. We didn't actually have any to eat, so I don't know. I think that it's edible, but it's not pleasant. I think that's right.
Sorry, but that looked different on this one picture that you showed us in the beginning from Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and we formed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting a bit lost in all these questions here. So this one is the next one from Christina07. Is it only one fish species nesting, or are there multiple species? Yeah.
It's absolutely one fish species only. It's some of those other dots that were shown on the map. We saw the other ice fish species, individuals, and we even saw in the Far East 1 or 2 nests over a 5 or 6 hour dive. But these are the nests that we knew that particular species likes to make next to rocks and things like that, which is closer to the Antarctic mainland, and there's more rocks and stuff on the seafloor. So we saw those fish over there, and interestingly, they were much more mobile. They're swimming around a lot more than this particular one. But this entire area, this is the only ice fish we saw. I think of all of the fish we saw, this was absolutely the only one of that type of fish that we saw.
There's another question from Morg from Org. It's about the fish species again, and how do they live outside of the spawning season? What is known about them? Do they live in swarms or groups, or can you tell us something about their typical way of living?
Yeah, so I mean, what we mostly know from them is from accidental catches or scientific trawls done by Koreans and a few other researchers over the last 30 or 40 years. We know that the fish, as they age, they come lower and lower in the water column. So they start small at the surface, and we know from trawls that they get bigger and bigger. If you trawl at 200 meters, they're bigger than the ones you caught at 100 meters. So the fish slowly come down, and they probably eat less frequently on larger prey as they go through their life. So that's what we know about that. There's one other aspect that I haven't actually mentioned, which I should do, and that is that an ice fish actually has blue blood rather than it hasn't got any hemoglobin. It uses a copper-based blood because that's better at carrying oxygen at 0 to 2 degrees temperature, which is what these fish live at. So they're really quite unique in lots of ways, the nesting and also this strange blood that they have. But no, they don't hang out in big shoals normally, no.
We've got a great question here from Mary, who is after my own heart and asks a great physical oceanography question on, so I hope you've been paying attention to these CTDs. And so Mary has asked, can you tell us a little bit more about that warm water mass that you mentioned?
Yeah, so this is the modified Weddell deep water, which for the last, this is a very complicated area of the ocean. We have this downwelling water going into the early stages of the global conveyor currents, right? So this fresh oxygenated water is going down, and that's displacing up onto the shelf this warmer water. And at the time we observed, it's coming up this fish in a trough. But this particular trough is only one of 7 or 8 across this shelf area. And in the past, we've known it's coming up in other locations. So it seems to be a very carefully balanced ecosystem, flow system, and a small variation in temperature can mean that the patterns of flow change. And I think that's why the fish has moved, because the zooplankton that I saw in the surface waters, this is also the area that's still above the old nests, which are no longer used. So there's still food. If they were nesting there would still be food for the juveniles, but they're not nesting there. They're nesting where the warm water is. So for some reason, this warm water is important, whether it's physiological for the eggs or as navigational aid, or they just like making a bed in the nice 2 degrees warm water. I don't know. So, yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't, right? I mean, it's just like a nice place to be in that environment.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, just like saying there's no more questions right now, but just to repeat some of the like compliments that you got from many people, and just to say something about Morg from Org. He just says again that this discovery is almost like a wonder, he says, because we don't even have like pictures of spawning eels and stuff. And I'm sure you can second that.
Yeah. I think that it can only be a few locations such a big colony could exist on this Earth. If they need this ice cover, there's maybe somewhere on the other side of Antarctica, but it could possibly be a globally unique location with such a large amount of fish nesting. It could be. I mean, it's like there isn't any ice there's nothing like this in the Arctic, so it's like it could be a unique place, and I really do consider it a new ecosystem. So maybe not as exciting as the hydrothermal vents, but I still think a new ecosystem, and it definitely will mean that all of the biologists that were so sure that their Weddell Sea food web was correct, that the seal eats this guy and this guy, they all neglected the ice fish. He was always a minor component of food webs, but now we can see that it must be important in the Weddell Sea. So it's going to shake up some of the modelers and things like that for the area, and as well as being a unique thing to look at.
Yeah, so many things, Autun, again.
Yeah, also from me, Autun, that was great, inspiring. I hope it sparked some interest with some of you out there to check it out. Autun, is there, if the people want to do some follow-up, where can they maybe read something? If you want to, you can put some later on in the comments, some links or so. But now, just is there anywhere where you'd suggest them to go or look up?
Yeah, you can email me on the website. It's on the end of my presentation in the talk, and I will put some links on the chat afterwards as well. Yeah, so no, we haven't got a dedicated website for the fish nests yet, but we probably should do. So maybe in a month I'll put a link to that on. Yeah, I'm going back again in 2 weeks, but a bit further north. I mean, I'm slightly scared that I'll put my camera in the water and see more fish nests. We're going a bit fish nest crazy at the end, but let's see. So.
I guess the Easter Bunny will be so happy to know that the supply with the eggs is not running out.
Billions of eggs. One of the journalists actually did work out how many eggs there must be if there's 60 million nests. It was billion something or other.
Alrighty. Once again, Autun, thanks for coming and being at the show. It was inspiring. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. We'll let you know when the next English talk is coming up. Otherwise, next week you see a bit how actually the wonders of nature are being transformed into technical solutions to combat climate change. Thanks so much, all. Thanks for being here with us. There was quite a few people there. And yeah, have a good night and cheers. See you next time.
Thank you. Cheers.
Wissenschaft fürs Wohnzimmer.
Say hi, Tesla. Hi. That was fun, guys. I hope it was okay.
Absolutely.